Are you morally obligated to fulfill your crewmate's last dying wish? Here's the situation. You and one other person is stranded on a deserted island, and the other man has a fortune at home, but he's dying, and he begs you to donate all his money to a jockey club. Now you promise him that you'll do it, but when you get rescued, you decide instead of following his wishes, you donate all the money to a hospital. Were you wrong to do this? This is a thought experiment presented by utilitarian philosopher J.J.C. Smart. Utilitarianism is a normative ethical framework that posits that the right thing to do is that which brings to the world the most utility. Now, utility in this sense just means more pleasure and less suffering. This is a consequentialist framework as it's only concerned with the consequences of an action, not who the actor is or if they had the right intentions. This case differs from many other thought experiments targeted at utilitarianism, because normally the utilitarian can claim that lying is wrong because then you might weaken trust in society, which will most likely bring less utility. But in this case, no one knows that you're lying, so the correct thing to do, according to the utilitarian, is to lie and give the money to the hospital, as that brings the most utility to the world overall. Smart claims that though it is correct for you to give the money to the hospital, it would also be correct for somebody else who figured out what you've done to condemn you for it. This is because overall you cause the most utility with your action, but since lying usually causes less utility, we should condemn your action for future cases so that others might actually keep their promises. I think, however, that this answer feels wrong, because yes, you are giving the money to a hospital, so it's not the worst thing in the world. But you're still breaking a promise to a person's dying wish. I think Smart's answer of condemning but still thinking that the action is correct lines up with utilitarianism. But I just think that's a weakness within utilitarianism. It's too cold and calculating. It doesn't take into account our humanity. In my opinion, the promise to a final wish is way stronger than just a normal promise, because this is their last message to the world. And by not keeping your promise, you're kind of ripping them of their own humanity. Now, of course, the case would be different if you didn't promise him anything, or if his wish was for the money to go to something horrible. But considering his money is only going to something he enjoyed and it won't hurt anybody else, I feel like you're wrong if you don't follow your promise. This coincides with deontology, Immanuel Kant's moral framework. Deontology is a non-consequentialist moral framework, as it doesn't concern itself with the consequences of an action, but rather the intentions of your action, and if it follows specific rules. He presents something called the categorical imperative, which shows which actions are morally permissible and not. An action is only permitted if you can strip the action down to a maxim, and that you'd be okay if everyone in the world were to follow that maxim. This is how he grounds murder as being wrong, because if everyone were permitted to murder, then no one would be alive, thereby no one being able to murder. It's the same with stealing. If everybody stole all the time, then the concept of stealing would disappear, as no one would have property to steal, because it would all be stolen. Now, by the same logic, lying must also be wrong, because if everybody were to lie all the time, then communication would cease to exist, as nobody would believe anything that was ever said. So lying wouldn't work if everybody lied all the time. Now, I don't really subscribe to deontology, as it's too strict and it gives answers that are completely backwards sometimes. I think Aristotle's virtue ethics is a lot better, as it doesn't make big generalizations that opens it up to counterexamples. Aristotle claims that the right action is whatever the virtuous person would do for the right reasons. If you were to save a drowning child, but you only did it for the praise you'd get, then you wouldn't be a moral person. He lays out some key virtues, such as courage, temperance, modesty, and many others. The two most important ones in Smart's thought experiment are loyalty and honesty. A virtuous man is one who keeps his word. If you make a promise, then you ought to keep it. You ought to follow the man's dying wish. Now, in this thought experiment, I think deontology and virtue ethics are giving the right answers, as utilitarianism says that giving the money to the hospital is the right thing to do. And though it's not the worst thing in the world, you're still breaking the promise for a person's dying wish. You're eliminating everything that person stands for. And I just think that the utilitarian answer disregards human importance. If you disagree with me on anything that's been said, please let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed the video, like and subscribe, and check out this video next.